Welcome back. Now to China. At least 17 U.S. military bases near Chinese-owned farmland reportedly seeing a surge in drone activity and sightings in recent weeks. The sightings happening near bases in Hawaii and installations in Utah, California, Maine, and Florida. House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCaul has been warning about the drones in focus these last couple of weeks. He says they're from China.
My judgment, based on my experience, is that those that are over our military sites are adversarial and most likely are coming from the People's Republic of China. Communist China is very good at this stuff. And we know they bought land around military bases. This would be very consistent with their policy over the last couple of years.
Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville was with me this week. He weighed in on this yesterday. Watch this. Are we buying drones still from DJI, a Chinese drone maker?
Oh, we're buying drones from China. There's no doubt about that. I talked to a drone maker the other day, and basically I said, why are we buying drones from China? They have better technology, Maria, than what we have that handles a lot of the technology parts, like that works with different type of materials, different type of plastics. They make them cheaper, but they make them better. Our technology is way, way behind, and I guess that's the reason we're buying them from them. But again, that's something else that needs to be discussed with armed services, both the House and the Senate.
Joining me now is the Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow. He is author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Gordon Chang back with us. Gordon, I find this stunning that we are still buying drones from China, and here we are trying to guess what the drones in the sky are that we're all talking about for the last couple of weeks. My guess is, and I've been saying this, that it is Communist China. Your reaction?
It certainly is Communist China for many of these drones, maybe even a majority of them. You know, the increased tempo of these drone flights against our military bases is occurring at the same time as there's increased frequency of incursions and attempted incursions of these bases by Chinese and other nationals. Really, what is occurring here is that they are preparing to attack the United States from American soil. I don't know why we need an engraved invitation from Beijing. It's clear what's going to happen. We are going to get hit, and we're not taking the necessary precautions to protect these bases and to protect the American people.
Well, I mean, there's also, a weakened situation to admit. I mean, you know, for the longest time, General Jack Keane has been telling us on this program repeatedly for years that we are outgunned, we are outmanned when you look at our Navy versus the Chinese Navy. I mean, the Pentagon released its 2024 China Military Power Report yesterday. It found that Beijing is increasing its military pressure on Taiwan. It's ramping up its aggression in the South China Sea. It's deepening its ties with Russia, and its crackdown on military corruption may have disrupted progress toward its 2027 modernization goal. China also growing its nuclear arsenal, adding at least 100 nuclear warheads to its stockpile over the past year, with 600 plus already in the arsenal. That number could grow to over 1,000 by 2030, Gordon. And yet there's no response ever from the Biden-Harris administration to Beijing's behavior. We allowed the spy balloon to traverse the country for a week before shooting it down. Why aren't they shooting down these drones in the air if they suspect they're from China?
There's no good answer. You have base commanders, first of all, don't have the authority, and they don't have the equipment to shoot down these drones. And the Chinese are noticing this, which means they see a big vulnerability. You know, and with those nuclear warheads, Maria, you know, China is building up its arsenal not to deter. It already has enough warheads to deter. It's building up its arsenal so that it can coerce us and others into not doing things like defending Taiwan. They saw the way Biden reacted to Vladimir Putin's nuclear threats before the invasion of Ukraine. They saw that they worked, and the Chinese are going to do the same thing when they go after the Philippines, Japan, Taiwan, whomever.
Well, I want to look at what's happening on the ground. A Chinese man was arrested in 2023 for allegedly running a secret Chinese police station in New York City. He pled guilty yesterday to acting as an illegal foreign agent, Gordon. He's now facing 5 years in prison. He and his partner allegedly opened this police station back in 2022 to track and intimidate Chinese dissidents living in the United States. Both were caught deleting communications with an official from the Chinese Ministry of Public Security after learning that they were, in fact, under investigation. Gordon, you've been talking about this for so many years, these police stations. You first broke the news on this program years ago that Beijing had set up these police stations in America. Again, no response from Biden for years on police station. Why would we need Beijing police stations in New York City?
No, we don't. And we don't need the 7 to 9 other police stations in the United States that the New York Post and the Daily Caller have written about and reported. It's fine that they closed the New York one. I'm great that they did that, but they should be closing the other installations as well. It is just no justification for allowing the Chinese to violate our sovereignty and in many cases commit crimes against us. We're allowing consular officials and Ministry of State security agents to commit those crimes and violate our security on our own soil.
Yep, great point. Lee Carter, jump in here.
Gordon, I am so intrigued by this whole thing. I've been talking about the drones for a while. My family is from New Jersey. I've seen the drones over my home. So many people are saying it's just not possible that these drones could be from a foreign entity, that we would know. And if they were, we would be doing something about it. How is it possible that this is happening? And what do you think is going to be different come January 20th?
Yeah. Well, some of these drones may not be Chinese, and if they're not, they're federal government drones because they're too big. They are not the drones of hobbyists. So that leads the question is, what is the federal government doing in the skies over New Jersey with such a large operation? And, there are any number of alternative explanations, but until we hear the truth from the Biden administration, we have to speculate. Yeah. As President Trump said on Monday, the federal government knows what's happening in the skies over New Jersey, but it's not telling us. And if it's not telling us, the story cannot be good.
Right.
The story can be ominous, it can be whatever, but it's not good.
Well, look, also ominous is this report that China is rapidly expanding its nuclear forces, according to the Pentagon, Gordon. I didn't hear you comment about that. U.S. Defense Department reports Beijing has increased its operational nuclear warhead arsenal by 20% in a year, Gordon.
Yes, and they're going very, very fast at this. And as we know, this is not for deterrence, this is for coercion. So they intend to engage in acts of aggression, but beforehand threaten everyone with the nuclear weapons if they don't do what the Chinese want. So wow. It's very clear what's happening. The Chinese have already made these threats, especially since 2021. And in 2013, they made the most ominous threat against the U.S. to target 13 American cities.
Yeah. Feels like a big bully in the global neighborhood, that's for sure. Gordon, great to get your insights as always. Thank you, sir.
So what is behind this? Sean O'Brien should know, the Teamsters General President, kind enough to join us. Sean, always good having you, but I gotta wonder, why now at Christmas time? Why this? I mean, could this have been put off until after the holiday?
Well, Neil, we've been dealing with this company and their games and antics for almost 2.5 years now. Enough's enough. We have the workers have spoken. They've chosen the Teamsters to represent them. We've made attempts to sit down and bargain with Amazon, with the people that we represent that signed the cards, the majority of the cards. And Amazon has refused continuously. They've even petitioned NLRB to say that what we're doing is illegal, which it's not illegal. So we have no other choice. And look, collective bargaining is all about leverage, and this is our leverage. This is our pinch point.
But you're leveraging Santa.
Yeah, well, Santa would be disgusted in the behavior that Amazon has been engaging in over the last several years. They don't respect their workers. They don't respect who makes them the success they are, and we're going to hold them accountable.
They're among the highest. I understand some of these differences, but they're among the highest retail workers in the country. Now, there are beefs here. I understand some of these beefs. But again, I'm going back to the timing of this, and a lot of Amazon customers who aren't really knee-deep in the weeds on what these contract issues are. But again, it is Christmas. And again, a good many Americans will see their presents delayed if their presents get there at all.
Well, they can divert them to a good union company like United Parcel Service, DHL, and everybody else. And, it's unfortunate
they
that
got
the public
6
has to be
days
put in the
to
middle.
do that.
But
right?
These folks are out there 365 days a year getting abused by Amazon. And, we have to set an example. And
what's the most, when you say abuse, Sean, what's going on that they're getting abused? I'm almost thinking like they're getting beaten on the job. What's going on?
They are. They're getting beaten on the job. They've got the most violations in OSHA. If you do the fact check, they're not getting paid accordingly. They're being paid through a scam, which is a third-party leasing arrangement, which they are a joint employer. These people are not being paid a livable wage. They're getting minimal benefits, if any, and it's a disgrace, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. And this company's worth $2 trillion.
Well, here's the wrap here on the company. You heard a little bit of that from our reporter, that this really isn't about a lot of workers there who are angry. This is about the Teamsters trying to get a leg in and a leg up with a company and sucking them dry for money. What do you say?
We already have a leg in, we got a leg up. We're not looking to suck anything out of any company. Amazon's got a duty to bargain, and they should sit down and bargain in good faith. Look, they know what bargaining is. They squeeze small businesses every single day. And if those businesses don't concede to their demands, what do? They ice them out. They blackball them. They don't deliver their products, force them out of business. We're not looking to do that. We're looking to sit down and negotiate and make certain that they treat their workers accordingly.
Now, this is obviously going to be a huge disruption during holiday season. I don't know what the odds are of resolving this quickly. But I'm wondering, have you talked to President-elect Trump about this? This is happening under President Biden, I get it. But something like this could be very disturbing if it lasts that long and into his inauguration, right?
Yeah, I have not talked to President Trump. I've reached out to the mayor of New York. I've reached out to the attorney general. We've got a problem in New York. Those are the only politicians that I've talked to, where the police are not allowing our members their constitutional right to picket. I don't blame the rank and file NYPD. I blame the command staff and the leadership in the city of New York. We have a right to picket. We should be allowed to picket, and no one should be arrested. We're doing it lawfully. And again, I don't blame the rank and file. They've got to listen to the command staff. But it's telling on how much influence Amazon has in New York. I mean, did they promise the police something? I don't know that. But the reality of it is we've got a constitutional right and we should be allowed to do it.
So let me ask you, last I heard, Sean, this was targeted in roughly 4 states, California, New York, Illinois, and Georgia. Could this go wider and at facilities far more widespread than that?
Oh, absolutely. This is a nationwide and also a global situation. We've got our brothers and sisters in Germany that are also going to strike either today or tomorrow. So this is not just a United States issue. This is a global issue on how Amazon treats their workers.
So let me step back, and you do have Donald Trump coming in about 5-6 weeks, and I'm wondering, you were very instrumental, if you think about it, in his getting elected in the first place. Not that you backed him, but you didn't back anybody. But that was unprecedented for a big union not to go with the Democrat. And a lot of people interpreted that, as you said last time I talked to you, that there were a good many of your members, a majority, that supported Donald Trump. So I'm just wondering how you would handle potential strikes in a Trump administration.
Well, that's up to the administration. I mean, look, I've been very clear with any and all administrations. The Biden administration, we've had a lot of contentious negotiations, and the message has been clear. Look, this is a fight between the Teamsters Union, representing the Amazon employees, versus Amazon, a white-collar crime syndicate. And it's our fight. And in the neighborhood I grew up in, if 2 people are fighting in the middle of the street and you really don't have anything to do with it, keep walking. If there's a resolution that any administration wants to put forth and hold this company accountable, we'll embrace it. But until the bad behavior stops, we're just going to continue to grow, we're going to continue to mobilize, and we're going to continue to extend.
What does Amazon have to do, in your eyes, to end this tomorrow?
What they have to do is they have to agree to sit down and bargain a contract in good faith. That's the law.
I understand that. But what's the number one issue you would like to resolve?
I want to resolve. I want to make certain that they treat these employees with dignity and respect, make sure they pay them the wages and benefits that they deserve, and comply like every other company that's in the same exact business. We've set industry standards with the United Parcel Service contract, with the DHL contract, and they should adhere to those standards and treat their employees accordingly.
A lot of cynics could look at this, John, and say this is an opening salvo on the part of the Teamsters not to address these issues with these workers at these facilities, but to get into Amazon, a largely non-union shop for the most part, and make it a union shop. Is that true?
Well, Amazon spends $17 million in 2022 to 2023 to fight the union. Just think if they invested that money in their workers. I mean, the cynics can say whatever they want. There's always going to be cynics no matter what. At the end of the day, we represent workers, and we represent workers that have to put up with the abuse of an Amazon or any other corporate bigwig. So we're going to continue the fight. That's all I can tell you. Any
Parting words of advice to the outgoing Democratic administration, to Democrats who had a tough go of it in the election? I mean, you were very frank about them at the time not reaching out to you, not wanting to meet with you. But I'm just curious what you make of what they should do now. Well, I think what they should do right now, because they've got a couple of weeks left, is they claimed that they walked a picket line. We've got picket lines all over the country. No one's walked a picket line right now. No one's walked that Amazon picket line. We've got Joe Biden still in office. We've got Chuck Schumer and AOC that is right in their backyard. Go out and show these workers how you support them. That's how you stop building bridges. That's how you stop building inroads back into the people that you once represented. All right, Sean, very good seeing you. I mean, I noticed you're wearing a Teamsters sweatshirt. I mean, but you're so well known and you're so recognizable. Do you even need to put Teamsters on the shirt? I mean, they kind of know, right? Well, listen, we lead from the front, Neil. I'm on the picket lines. I'm heading to California to jump on a picket line out there as well. So I'm in battle gear, man. All right. I thought you'd have something like that as an answer. Sean, always good seeing you. Merry Christmas, my friend. Hope it all works out. Sean O'Brien. Thank you, sir. The Teamsters General President.
Welcome back. Congressional leaders are negotiating a continuing resolution to avert a government shutdown ahead of Friday's deadline. Sources telling Fox News that lawmakers will likely get to see the text of that bill today. It was delayed yesterday over an impasse over agricultural provisions. Meanwhile, the House Freedom Caucus is throwing its weight behind a two-part reconciliation plan, which we've been reporting on for the last few weeks. They want a fully offset border security package moving first, meaning they want the border money, and then they want to see cuts, spending cuts to offset that money, followed by a larger bill covering taxes, energy spending, and more later on in the year. House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith and Utah Senator Mike Lee joined me yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures to discuss these reconciliation strategies. Watch.
I believe that the one package is the quickest and best approach to deliver these victories for the American people. There has not been two reconciliation bills that have been signed into law in the same year since 1997, when Newt Gingrich was Speaker, and they had a much larger margin.
Well, look, we do plan to get to the extension of the tax cuts. And so the thought is we can do two in a year, but the first one involving securing additional funding for border security, possibly some defense spending, while simultaneously providing what are called pay-fors, offsets to any spending, will also be in the package.
Joining me now is former Speaker of the House, former Georgia Congressman and Fox News contributor, and the author of March to the Majority, Newt Gingrich, back with us. Speaker, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, it's good to be with you, and Jason was right. We passed two reconciliation bills in 1997. They can do that this year, but here's the point I would drive home. They need to have the Senate commitment to pass the tax bill by May 31st. To go to conference in June and to sign the bill by July 4th. Reagan talked into having his tax cuts arrive late. We lost 26 seats in 1982. Similarly, President Trump was talked into taking up a bunch of other stuff, didn't get his tax bill until late. They lost 40 seats in 2018. Keeping the House is the biggest single challenge for the Trump administration, because a Republican House in the last 2 years versus a Democratic House is night and day in terms of the Trump revolution continuing its momentum. So if you work back from keeping the House, you have to have the tax cut bill and the deregulation bill signed into law by the 4th of July, so it's affecting the economy so well and so powerfully that people are really happy in 2026, and the Republicans gain seats as Franklin Roosevelt did in 1934. Well, I'm perfectly happy to have a two-step if the Senate, let me be clear, Maria, if the Senate will commit that they're going to pass the tax bill in May and not have it drag out into the fall. If it drags into the fall, it will be a disaster for President Trump and a disaster for the House Republicans.
And that's why we're having this conversation. The fact is the whole idea to have two reconciliation packages is risky, right? I mean, you know, you're saying the second one has to be done by July. How realistic is that?
Well, it's totally realistic if they decide to do it. I mean, what it means is you do you write the two bills in parallel. The people writing the border bill are on judiciary. The people writing the tax bill are on Ways and Means. You can do two things. And we did this before. And when I was Speaker, we did it. But it means that the Senate can't just dawdle around, bring it up in October, because the Senate doesn't have skin in the game. The Senate's not likely to get lost next year. The House is in real danger of getting lost, and only a really vibrant, dynamic economy will convince people to give the Republicans another chance at power. So I would say that Speaker Johnson and the President have to look Senator Thune in the eye, and frankly, probably have to go to the Senate lunch and look at every Republican senator and say, okay, are you willing to commit that you will get this tax bill done by May 31st? If so, we can go with a two-part strategy. If you're not willing to commit that, I'd insist on all of them being in one bill and moving it. I mean, I think Jason Smith, the chairman of Ways and Means, has a very good argument. Now, I can be flexible, having been Speaker and having watched all the different sides. I'm flexible if the Senate will make a commitment, and if the president will stay focused on mobilizing the grassroots. That's how Reagan won, as he aroused the grassroots.
What about a gigantic package? Is it too unrealistic to think about a big package which has all of this in it and to get passed in the first 100 days by April 30th? Or is that just unrealistic, Speaker?
Well, I mean, look, I'm told two very contradictory things. I've had people in the Senate tell me that Senate Finance has been working on this bill for a year. Certainly, Jason Smith and the Ways and Means Committee in the House have worked on it for a year. So at one level, you'd think, lock them in a room on January 3rd and say, don't come out till you guys agree on a bill, and maybe have them write it together. So you're basically getting the same bill in both bodies, modified, of course, by what it takes to get them through. You could imagine doing that. I think what's happened, though, is that the Trump team, I'm not sure about the president, but the Trump team is convinced that they can get a very early win that'll be a big morale booster on the border, that's easy to write, it's not that complicated. The tax bill will inevitably, if it's going to be as big as Trump wants, it's inevitably going to be complicated. They got a brand new Secretary of the Treasury. They're going to get a brand new group of people in the various jobs at Treasury. They're all going to want to have their pinky in writing this thing. So it gets to be a muddle for a little while. Again, having driven this before, and in the 4 years I was Speaker, we drove a lot of stuff. You have to set deadlines. You have to hold people accountable. You can't let them go home on the weekends if they're not getting their job done. But if they will commit to get it all out of the Senate by May 31st, to get it through conference in June, get it signed by July 4th, I'm perfectly happy with a two-track plan. But boy, I would insist on a one-track plan if you can't get the Senate to commit to that.
I mean, Newt, have you spoken with them to give them this context? It's really important, everything you're saying this morning.
Yeah, well, I've talked to various people, but look, I'm just an advisor. You know, I used to be Speaker. I'm not Speaker, and I have to tell you, I have the greatest admiration for Mike Johnson. I couldn't do his job. Yeah. I mean, he has the patience of Job, and he has a one-vote margin. So you have to pay careful attention. Now, the other part of this, Maria, is if you go back and look at Reagan, when they passed the bill with 49 Democratic votes, Tip O'Neill said we had an avalanche of phone calls because Reagan went on national TV and aroused the Reagan base. If the Trump team will arouse all the different grassroots groups that helped elect him, and all of them pile on to pass the tax bill, I am confident you'll have a bunch of Democrats vote yes, because they won't be able to take the heat back home.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they don't have the votes on the border, which forces them to do reconciliation even on the border. I mean, that's one of the issues. So I don't know who's going to support any of this on the Democrat side.
Look,
you have a new op-ed out on FoxNews.com. You write this: a reconciliation bill that cuts taxes and reforms regulations to create jobs with 3 or 4 months of grassroots communications, education, and organization could lead to a substantial number of Democrats deciding they have to support the bill or face certain defeat. You also argue that the potential is here for a positive bipartisanship that reforms the establishment and creates a much more dynamic, safer, and more prosperous America. But, I mean, Newt, I don't know if the Democrats recognize that already. Maybe they need time to see that. I don't know.
No, yeah, that's why you need 3 or 4 months of grassroots activism.
Right.
But take the president's proposal to have no tax on tips. Look at Nevada, a state which has a huge population that works for tips. Now, you should be able to organize Nevadans in favor of a tax cut that eliminates taxes on tips, and they should be able to bring enough pressure on the Nevada Democrats that it becomes a matter of survival.
Yeah.
I mean, Reagan got 49 votes for the tax cut from the Democrats. We got, amazingly, on welfare reform, which was the most conservative social reform in your lifetime, we got 101 Democrats yes and 101 no, because the grassroots were so aroused that they just, unless you were a hard left Democrat in a very safe seat, you couldn't vote no. Now, 101 to 101. So my goal would be to probably target 60 Democratic seats and the 30 weakest Republican seats, make sure that the grassroots in those 90 seats were totally organized. And that takes a couple months. But that should happen now. They shouldn't wait until later. They can start organizing the grassroots. They can figure out the key parts that are clearly going to be in the bill, the things that people really want, and they can start marketing and educating right now and organizing. I mean, imagine that you had tip workers of America in favor of the Trump tax cut. How big a grassroots organization could that be?
Yeah. Newt, you make so many great points, and I want to rerun this interview to ensure that everybody sees it. Welcome back. House Republicans are scrambling now to come up with another government funding bill after the proposed deal was shut down by President-elect Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and other top lawmakers as well. Trump wants the new bill to increase the debt ceiling and not include any unnecessary or unrelated Democrat giveaways. He also says anyone who votes for this current deal should be primaried. The original bill would have given Congress its first raise since 2009. It would allow them to opt out of the Affordable Care Act. It also included a provision allowing Congress to block subpoenas for House data and would have funded a State Department agency accused of censoring Americans. The DOJ agency already flexed its muscles on these negotiations. Co-head Elon Musk strongly opposed the bill on X, calling it, quote, criminal. All this sparking some on Capitol Hill to consider removing Mike Johnson as the Speaker. 2 Republicans telling Fox News Digital that House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, and Florida Congressman Byron Donalds all mentioned as alternative Speaker candidates. The vote for the Speaker for the next Congress is happening on January 3rd. Joining me now is Pennsylvania Congressman Dan Muser, a member of the House Financial Services, Small Business Committees, and the DOJ Caucus. Congressman, wow, what a Wednesday yesterday. How would you assess
just another day in paradise, Maria?
Yeah, exactly. Tell us what happened.
Well, what happened was, in many ways, DOJ did its job, right? I mean, as soon as we got the 1,400-plus pages, we thought we had a CR with some disaster relief. It turned out to be a lot more and a lot worse than that. Every page I turned, it got uglier by the page. Even this $100 billion, for crying out loud, for disaster relief. Okay, necessary, but I mean, is it all necessary? When I see numbers like $100 billion, why not 98.2? I mean, it should be based upon need, not based upon a number. And you know what? DOJ swept in. DOJ did its job. Joe alerted the American people, hey, look what's going on here. And this pay raise. I mean, glad that it hasn't been one since, 2009, but the optics and everything else is just totally inappropriate right now. That should be discussed with the American people. They're the ones paying us. DOJ did its job, and I'll tell you what, then the President Trump stepped in, and we'll get a clean CR with a debt ceiling, and hopefully have a Merry Christmas.
Will you be able to do that, you think, by Friday at midnight? You think you're going to get something to keep this government funded?
I do, because a clean CR is just essential at this point. And let's face it, that's a Biden budget, Biden-Harris budget, so that's not good either. But it's only until March 14th. But then we've got the President Trump in office, of course, working in conjunction and in an orchestrated way with the House, which, by the way, didn't happen here. That's why there's a lot of disgruntled members, including myself, as to how this played out. I mean, this should have been done in a manner that was highly cooperative with the incoming House. We should have been in line completely with where they want to go. And that doesn't mean a blank check, Maria, but we know what the President Trump's agenda is, what the America First agenda is. And we do know that DOGE is there for a reason. We're going to grow, and yet we're going to reduce spending. So all these things need to be working together. There's no reason for this to have occurred.
Yeah, but once again, you've got a debate underway about next year, right? I mean, look, you're talking about two different reconciliation packages, and everybody's not on board with that. You know that. House Freedom Caucus Chairman Andy Harris and Florida Senator Rick Scott sent a letter to House Speaker Mike Johnson and incoming Senate Majority Leader John Thune. They endorsed this two-step reconciliation process with 20 other lawmakers. The plan would focus on border security first. Right after the new Congress begins, get a win on the board when Trump takes office. Then a second tax policy bill would be considered later in the year. But look, you're going to extend the tax cuts all the way at the end of 25. And there's some questions about, if you're going to have problems actually getting that done. And we all know what voters voted for. They wanted the border secured, and they wanted inflation out of their lives, and they wanted the tax extended. Here's Jason Smith, the chairman of House Ways and Means, followed by Utah Senator Mike Lee with me Sunday. Watch.
I believe that the one package is the quickest and best approach to deliver these victories for the American people.
So you say maybe there's an opportunity to do one gigantic omnibus type package and put it all in there, border, defense, energy, and taxes.
And spending cuts. I believe it is the quickest approach and the best approach.
Well, look, we do plan to get to the extension of the tax cuts. And so the thought is we can do two in a year, but the first one involving securing additional funding for border security, possibly some defense spending, while simultaneously providing what are called pay-fors, offsets to any spending, will also be in the package.
So what about that, Congressman? Can you do one gigantic package at the beginning of the year to apply all of these issues that voters want to, looked at, or do you need to do two reconciliation packages?
Maria, maybe if the Speaker and John Thune and the President's administration, President Trump, sit down and they can actually come to a conclusion with all three, with energy and border and taxes in it. But if not, the two-step program, I've been an advocate of from the very beginning. Let's do the border. If they can include some permitting in there for energy, that's fine. But let's do the border. Let's have some pay-fors in it. Let's work up a tax package, which everybody agrees is probably going to take a little bit longer, and get that done too. But if we do things, look, we got this Trivetka. Now, granted, we don't have 60 votes in the Senate, but that's where reconciliation comes in.
Right.
So there should be no reason we can't do the two-step. I'm all for it, if in fact that's what the White House wants to do.
Well, look,
we got to get on board.
Newt Gingrich told me last week that in order to do two bills, you have to start working on that tax bill immediately after the first reconciliation package goes out. You need to get all the language written by May, and you need to have that signed into law by July 4th. Yeah. Okay? So the border bill is providing 4 years of funding for the border wall. It's hiring thousands of additional border officials. It's increasing the number of migrant holding facilities. It's imposing significant financial penalties on those living illegally in the United States. And it's eliminating migrants' ability to receive taxpayer-funded welfare benefits. Fine. But they also say that first reconciliation bill should be fully offset with real spending cuts. I mean, you couldn't get the spending cuts in the CR at the end of this year. How are you going to get the spending cuts in that border bill? And what about getting a tax bill done by July 4th? You're going to be busy.
We're going to be busy. It absolutely can get done. As a matter of fact, the tax bill, as far as I know, is pretty well complete. I mean, there's some nuances that need to be covered, but for the most part, it's a continuation of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that was done before, and so very important to small business and families and to our economy as a whole. So we do that, and we do offsets. The level of spending that took place in the Biden administration is off the charts. I mean, the EPA, the Department of Education, Department of Labor have been doubled. Maria, the SNAP payments, very necessary, but the SNAP payments before COVID was $62 billion. Today, they're $130 billion. They were never ratcheted back. Nothing was ratcheted back. You know, we had a COVID epidemic, and then we had a Biden epidemic, a pandemic. Now we're done with both, and now we need to move on, pro-growth, bring our government back in order, bring some efficiency, do the job with a sense of urgency.
All right, we're going to be watching your work. Wow, EPA and Department of Education spending doubled. That's incredible. Congressman, it's always a pleasure. Merry Christmas to you and family, and thanks very much.
Thanks, Maria. Merry Christmas to you and your family.
All right, Congressman Dan Muser in D.C. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Joining us now, incoming counselor to President-elect Trump, Alina Habba. Alina, we love talking to you. It's wonderful to see you again. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. First, do you have any more details on the alleged misconduct by the juror in this case?
I do, as part of, obviously I'm part of the team, but those are not ones that I am willing to share at this point. What I can tell you is it's definitely egregious, despite the redactions, and without getting into detail, it is not a questionable thing. There was misconduct by the jurors, and it would have anything thrown out. Now, one thing we are learning, as you've delicately said, but I will say more directly, Judge Merchan's description of what happened and what falls under the Supreme Court's decision is so flawed and egregious and so ridiculous. He is completely disregarding the Supreme Court of the United States, the highest court that said that there is presidential immunity for official acts. And now he is trying to carve out in any way he can to preserve face and say that this trial was not a complete hoax, was not a complete disaster, an evidentiary disaster. And now we know there were issues with the jury being tainted. So, this is where we are. And this is where we've been for 3.5 years. And frankly, why I think we won.
Alina, so we've got allegations of a juror's misconduct in the case. Can you please tell us how this case is ripe for appeal? Legal experts have told us there are a lot of constitutional violations. The jury wrongly heard evidence that was protected by presidential immunity, the Supreme Court upheld, like President Trump's conversations with Hope Hicks. The judge delayed sentencing indefinitely. That's clearly a due process right to a speedy trial violation. And now juror misconduct, it sounds like that juror was tainted. There could have been bias here.
Yeah, let's add some to that. Statute of limitations, which before they brought this, we knew was passed. This case was passed up by Cy Vance. It was passed up prior by Bragg, and then it was brought again. How about we also discuss that the White House was coordinating and sent their own guy into work for the New York DA from the DOJ? How about that? How about selective prosecution, election interference, tying this man up in a hoax case during an election cycle when he should have been campaigning? How about all of the things you said? But this is where we have problems. The judge should have recused. We've said it time and time again. We have one thing standing right now before all the appeals we will take on this ridiculous decision today, and that is the motion to dismiss that this judge gave us leave to file. I don't have much hope in Judge Merchan, but we do have pending motions. Go ahead.
Sorry, Alina. So, Senator Chuck Grassley, has said this is really scary that all Americans, right or left, he's saying take the politics out of it. When you see the lawfare abuses, it could happen to you. It could happen to viewers. That's why millennial voters, we heard, were so scared about what the Justice Department and what cases like DA Bragg brought. They feel it could happen to them personally. This was a books and records misdemeanor, like a parking ticket, but it got ramped up into 34 felonies. That's terrifying for the American judicial system. Final word.
Yes. Yes, and he was not there. He was in the White House as president. These are acts that were done by an accounting team at the Trump Organization. And there is so many uncanny things happening here. And the American people are afraid, and they should be afraid, but not anymore. Because I can assure you that when we go in and when this administration gets to work, it will be top of mind to fix this lawfare and prosecution against a political opponent or any American. It should not happen.
Okay, Alina Habba, thank you so much. To recap the news, breaking news at the top of this segment, a juror is accused of misconduct in DA Manhattan DA Bragg's case against Donald Trump. We're going to stay on that story. Thank you so much, Alina.
Joining me now right here on set in living color, John Carney. Breitbart finance and economics editor, co-author of the daily Breitbart Business Digest, Brian Brenberg, my friend, co-host of the Big Money Show right here on Fabulous Fox Business, and the great Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business senior correspondent, author of Go Woke, Go Broke.
Ooh.
John Carney, did I get that wrong? No, we got it right.
I was going to say it's almost a segue into what's going on.
I know, go woke, go broke. I know. Yeah, I know. If history is any guide. John Carney, I basically just say the Fed bungled everything. Absolutely everything. Now, you were the author of this, and you've been no Fed fan. I guess, do I have to resurrect Oliver Cromwell again in the name of God go? That was what he told the Parliament in 1760-something. Anyway, John, go ahead, because you've been on this.
Yeah, look, the Fed completely misread where inflation's going to go, and they're admitting it tacitly in these projections. They are right now saying inflation will be 2.5% at the end of next year, and it won't get down to 2.1% until the end of the following year. 2027, they're talking about getting down to 2026 down to 2.1%. So what they're telling us is where they thought we'd be at the end of this year isn't going to happen until next year. And then that's not going to happen until the year after that. So inflation is with us for longer. The September cut was a mistake. They should have never done it. Frankly, I think Jerome Powell should resign. This is an admission of failure on his part. The market, what we saw today is the market has lost confidence in the Fed. It does not believe that the Fed has inflation under control. And yet Powell insists they do have it under control. In fact, he almost insanely says things are going according to plan. Look, Jerome, they're not going according to plan. We can see where you thought we'd be. We're not there, and now you tell us we're never getting there.
You know, and as I said to Edward Lawrence, who's a very good reporter, I hope he did not take it back. I don't know what Powell's message is. He's not speaking to middle-class Americans. And so you basically agree with Oliver Cromwell. Okay? I admit the subject matter was somewhat different, but, you know, in the name of God, go. I mean, Powell has outlived his time, and a new president like Trump should be able to put a new man at the Fed. Now, Brian Brenberg, I want to get your take, because you also have on the other side, it's not all monetary. It shouldn't be. Sure. You know, you've got all these free-spending Democrats. Chuck Schumer and company won a big, fat end-of-year spending bill, which is wrong. They want to add a couple of $100 billion to state and local Social Security benefits, which is wrong. And, you know, I hate to say it, but the administration does not yet have a clear strategy regarding their tax cuts and their spending cuts and the border and when.
Yeah, good time to get one, right? I mean, there's a silver lining in all of this, okay? So the Fed has failed. Everybody can see it. The premium now is on some competent fiscal leadership. That means on this continuing resolution, I'm with you on this. Don't do it till next year. Do the smallest thing you can to punt into the new year. Get it off the table. Get your new Senate in place.
Was it 12 pages you told me
I want 20.
Show?
I think Vivek said we can do this in 20 pages.
Not 3,000. Not 3,000.
Get it to January of next year. Exactly. Not whatever the thousands it is. And then, gosh, we have got to get the tax cut and the regulation piece right. Because if we're going to lick inflation, it's not going to be because of Jay Powell. It's not going to be because of the Fed. It's not their interest rate policy. It's productivity. It's growth. It's getting an economy roaring again, putting money in people's pockets. The stuff he doesn't get and he doesn't know how to speak to are the things people care about. And that's going to have to be a fiscal deal. So if you're in D.C. and you're not the Fed, time to get it together right now.
Charlie, it looks confusing. A week or two ago.
There's never one reason for anything.
Yeah, but I mean, just think of it. Look, Trump is on honeymoon. It's no question. He has very good popularity. And his policies were very clear during the campaign. Okay. Yeah. But the implementation, we're now getting into the stage where the real world impinges on the promises. And the implementation, I'm not saying it won't work. It may work. I've been in touch with a lot of senior people on the Hill and the administration. But they're going to have to make hard and fast decisions on all these fronts. They got to do it pretty fast.
I mean, Trump was always going to be volatile. The market was always going to be volatile. Tax cuts versus tariffs, that's a recipe for volatility. I will say this. I'm looking at it a little differently. Inflation rate. Is that what now? 2.5, did he say?
It's running. The core inflation is, yes, 3.
Came down below 3.
Services 4.
By the way,
services 4.
I am no fan of Jerome Powell. He's almost immaterial and should be right now. The inflation rate is coming down. It's going to come down some more. That said, wages have never caught up to where prices are.
Right.
How do you change that? Well, I have to say, as much as you got to admire Donald Trump for his comeback, for surviving assassin attempts, lawfare, I think he's missing a big opportunity politically. He was up yesterday talking about suing the Des Moines Register. They could be, listen, for all I know, the greatest fraud ever came with that poll.
Doesn't put money in blue-collar pockets.
I'm telling you, he should have been talking to, yes, he should have been talking to yesterday, speaking yesterday to, you know, Vivek and Elon are going to take $1 trillion out by the end of the year. And by the way, we're going to cut taxes. And by the way, regulations are going to come down.
You should keep saying
And by the way, you know, this is happening. And by the way, we know blue-collar people are hurting. And I guarantee we would not see this type. And he could say, listen, Jerome Powell, whatever he does, he does. I'm not Joe Biden.
He's a little off. It's an interesting point. He's a little off message. You know what's happened?
It's a lot.
Yeah, but hang on. It's because the Congress, the Republicans, they haven't quite taken over yet. Okay, that's coming January 3rd.
That's one issue.
But they are sort of throwing sand in the gears, okay? They want to wait to do this. They want to wait to do that.
Republicans are doing that?
Yes. What you want to see, here's my take. It's interesting.
But, you know, Larry, he's got the bully pulpit.
Well,
if Mitch McConnell doesn't want to bring it, take it to him.
He's got to say to Mr. Thune, who I think is a very capable man, okay, and Mike Johnson, another capable, he's got to say, this is what I want. I want tax cuts out of the gate. I want border security out of the gate. I want a big fat reconciliation bill, and I want you to deliver it to me by the spring. Whether it's 100 days or 120 days or 131, this is what I want. He has to say that. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, well, of course. It's exactly what I'm saying.
This.
But if you were in there, you'd be saying it.
Actually, I would be.
The other thing
I was in there once, and I used to say it.
When you were in there, you were saying it. You know, I would say this, and we're just going to have to accept a level of volatility in the markets going forward.
Oh, yeah.
I think, you know, listen, I'm a journalist. I like freaking out over headlines and saying, you know, this is
we
big.
Do without headlines?
What would we do? We wouldn't have a TV show if we didn't do that.
What was the final? Was it 1,100 points?
But I'm just telling you, 1,100 on 40,000 ain't like Armageddon here. And you know, tomorrow something's going to come back, and we're going to talk about how, you know, retail sales are up or down, you know, something better, and the markets are going to get better. Just for the average viewer
10
out
straight
there,
days. Can I get a little 10 straight days?
Maybe it's a buying opportunity. I don't know. I'm not saying buy, by the way.
Here's the thing about 10 straight days. I mean, Charlie's right. The percentage change is about 5%, 6%. Okay. Some of these things are correcting, though. NVIDIA is down over 10%.
Sure. Maybe it's profit taking at the end of the year.
Yeah, maybe. You know, maybe there's a better Cinderella movie coming out. I don't know. But the reason is, when you see these headlines tomorrow, or it's already online, right? Dow's down 10 straight days, first time since 1974. 1974, not a year I wish to remember.
Oh, neither me. My father was out of work, and we had the New York City financial crisis.
I might add, I was working at the New York Fed in 1974.
Thank you for putting my father out of work.
And I was in open market operations, and I was making about $12.5 a year. So, but apart from my own problematic personal story, Nixon was impeached in 1974. America was in a deep recession in 1974. The inflation rate was well into double digits in 1974, and the stock market was crashing in 1974. So I'm just saying, I hate to see a headline celebrate a year like 1974.
Right. Well, so one that can shake consumer confidence, because when people see that the stock market is going down, all the surveys that ask people, even people who don't own stocks, know that the stock market is a predictor of what's going to happen in the economy, and they care about what's happening. So this is very bad news for consumer confidence. Also, I think that
Didn't you do a piece, I don't mean to interrupt, but something like 65% of Americans follow the stock market
Absolutely.
very
65%
closely. That's a big number.
of Americans say that it matters to them personally.
But you know,
not just that it matters to America.
That's a big number.
Yeah, but the market was up through Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's reign of error.
Not adjusted for inflation, by the way. It was barely up.
Okay.
Just me,
I'm
Charlie.
Just saying it was, we had a nice rally. We had a nice rally, yet average people still voted for Trump.
Well, and here's the thing that really
don't take too much out of
Sure,
this.
but here's the thing that I think really frightens me. The Fed's projection for where inflation is going is higher next year than the end of this year.
So why are they cutting rates?
Exactly. They should not be cutting rates if they're projecting higher inflation.
Professor, if you say inflation tomorrow is going to be higher than it is today, why are you cutting interest rates and pumping money in?
They're cutting interest rates because they said they were going to cut interest rates. That's not their job. Okay, look.
This is a moment for new economic leadership. The past 4 years have been dominated by the Fed. It's time for someone else to step in, and we know who that is, and say the new priority is growth, lower taxes, lower prices, and an economy you can work in.
True,
and America will say amen.
Brian, why did he cut taxes? Because he doesn't want to get fired by Trump.
Or cut rates, you mean? Yeah.
Why did he cut taxes?
Why did he cut rates?
No, wait a second.
This was all Trump.
This
was all kiss
Hold
up
on
to
a second.
Trump.
John Carney's article.
You agree with me?
Wait.
No, my reporting actually shows.
Right. John Carney's report. Here, you say what
you're
reporting.
My reporting actually shows that Donald Trump's economic team is very worried about inflation.
Right.
They do not want the Fed cutting right now.
Right.
This is very different than what people expected.
What is Trump saying?
I'm telling you what people very close to Donald Trump are saying. And they speak to the president. And what they say is they are very worried about inflation. They know that tanked Biden's presidency. They don't want inflation. They don't want a Fed cutting into inflation.
There is no way that Trump did not want 25 points.
I don't think he did.
We don't know that.
We would know that.
If he has a hangover, if he has a Biden inflation hangover,
he likes low rates.
Year,
he said it.
Not all the time, Charlie. Trust me, he doesn't always.
Really? He almost fired the guy 5 years ago.
Well, he probably should.
Because they shouldn't have been raising, or they shouldn't have been raising 5 years ago, and now they shouldn't be cutting.
I don't
Jerome
mind.
Powell's Fed is
I'm gonna
wrong.
go back to Brian. There's a supply side solution to it, not a demand side, not spending all the taxpayers' money. Lower tax rates for individuals and corporations, which Trump would like to do as fast as possible. That will create more goods on the market, goods and services, and that will bring the inflation rate down without causing us to go into a recession. It's not that hard.
Only sustainable thing.
It's a growth strategy.
The only thing that will bring inflation down.
And it's what helped Trump win. Remember,
nothing else will do it.
The economy was about growth and inflation and take-home pay. People have been clobbered, Charlie, because prices went up over 20%, and as you said earlier, prices outpaced wages, and they never forgot.
Inflation, let's be real clear here. Inflation is down where we have the problem.
Well, that's the way, economists measure inflation.
No.
That's not grocery store
But be right. Be right about it.
That's not car prices.
But here's why. That's
not insurance
Here's why
prices.
it matters. Because I'm giving you the Main Street version
I'm
here.
giving you the Main Street.
If you're
giving me the Harvard,
There's
Yale,
only one
Princeton.
Main Street.
I went to the University of Missouri. Journalism school of all places. But just so you know, inflation is down. What we have to do is get wages up. We have to get the supply side going. That is a different story. And by the way,
it's the best thing he's ever said.
By the way,
it's the best, his finest
easier.
moment.
Well done. Oh, thank
and
you.
It comes at the end of the segment, but it's okay. I like it.
You know inflation's down,
It's
right?
okay.
The rate of inflation.
Thank you, John Maynard. John Maynard, Nobel Prize. Anyway, we got to get out.
In the long run, we're all dead.
Charlie Gasparino, John Carney, Brian Benberg. You're all fabulous.